I woke up to the sound of a machine breathing for me. A slow, steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. Like a cruel reminder that I was still alive, even when I wasn't sure I wanted to be. My body ached in places I didn't even know could feel pain. My eyelids were heavy, my throat was dry, and the taste of blood clung to the back of my mouth. For a long moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then, like a flood breaking through a dam, it all came back. The crash, the rain, the sound of shattering glass, and the look on my stepmother's face. Before she walked away from me, she didn't even try to help. She just stood there, watching me bleed on the asphalt, and whispered something I'll never forget. "You shouldn't have been born." Those words still echo inside me, louder than the heart monitor, sharper than the pain in my ribs. When I finally opened my eyes, I was in a sterile white room. The ICU, tubes ran into my arms, and the smell of antiseptic stung my nose. I turned my head slightly and saw the empty chair beside my bed. No one was there. No father, no stepmother, no one waiting for me to wake up. Just silence. My name is Lena Harris. I'm 23 years old, and 3 days ago, my entire life was normal. Or at least, it looked that way from the outside. My father, Richard Harris, is a respected architect, quiet, methodical, the kind of man who keeps his feelings folded neatly behind his shirts. My stepmother, Mira, was complicated. The world saw her as elegant, graceful, polite. The kind of woman who could charm anyone with a single smile. But I knew another side of her. The side that smiled through clenched teeth. The side that controlled everything I did. What I wore, where I went, who I spoke to. She used to say, "Discipline builds character, Lena." But what she really meant was obedience keeps secrets safe. The night of the accident started like any other. It was raining. Not the soft kind that smells like home, but the kind that lashes at your windows and drowns the streets in silver. I had just finished a late shift at the cafe, and my phone kept lighting up with Mira's messages. "Why aren't you home yet? Do you have any idea what time it is? Your father's waiting for dinner." I remember gripping the steering wheel tighter with each message, feeling that familiar pressure in my chest. The suffocating need to please her, to prove that I wasn't the disappointment she always said I was. When the headlights appeared in front of me, too fast, too close, I swerved. The car spun out of control. I remember the scream tearing from my throat, the violent crunch of metal against the guardrail, the sharp sting as glass cut into my skin, and then her face, Mira. She'd followed me in her car. I saw her through the blur of rain. She got out, walked toward me slowly, her umbrella barely tilting against the downpour. I reached out, blood soaking through my sleeve. "Help, please!" But she didn't move. She just stood there, watching. Then she leaned down, close enough for me to see her red lipstick smear in the rain, and whispered, "You shouldn't have been born." She turned and walked away. Her heels clicked on the wet pavement like a countdown. I remember the faint glow of headlights disappearing, then nothing, just darkness swallowing me whole. When I woke up in the ICU 2 days later, my father wasn't there, but Mira was. She stood by the window, her reflection fractured against the glass. Her arms were crossed, her expression unreadable. When she noticed I was awake, she smiled. That same practiced, perfect smile. "Well," she said softly, "looks like you're tougher than I thought." I tried to speak, but my throat burned. She poured a glass of water, brought it closer, and then set it down just out of reach. "You scared your father, you know," she continued. "He thinks this was all an accident." Her voice lingered on the last word, almost mocking it. I wanted to ask her why she left me there. I wanted to scream that I remembered everything. Her voice, her words, her indifference. But I couldn't. My body was weak, and fear paralyzed me. She leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You'll rest here for a few days," she said. "And when you're ready, we'll forget all about this little incident." I stared into her eyes, and for the first time, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. Not anger, not frustration, but fear. She was scared of something, or someone. Before I could process it, the door opened, and a man in a grey suit walked in, holding a folder. He had a badge clipped to his belt. A detective. Mira froze. "Detective, what is this about?" she asked, her voice tight. He ignored her and looked at me. "Miss Harris, I'm Detective Rowan. I know you've been through a lot, but we need to talk about something important." My heart started racing. He stepped closer, glancing at my medical chart. "There was a discrepancy in your file," he said carefully. "During surgery, the hospital performed a standard DNA verification for blood compatibility. And, well, the results didn't match." I frowned, confused. "Didn't match what?" He hesitated, then looked at Mira, whose face had drained of color. "Didn't match your parents." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, his eyes soft with pity. "Miss Harris, according to federal records, you were reported missing 23 years ago." The world went silent. The sound of the monitor faded into the background as my mind tried to catch up. Missing 23 years ago. That was before I was even born, or so I thought. My father suddenly burst into the room, panic in his eyes. "Detective, what's going on?" The detective turned to him. "Mr. Harris, we have reason to believe your daughter, Lena, was kidnapped 23 years ago." I remember the sound of my father's gasp, the way his knees buckled as he stared at Mira and her. She didn't even flinch. She just stared back, her lips trembling slightly before curving into a faint smile. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "That's impossible." But the detective laid the folder on the bed. Inside was an old photo. A baby girl with the same birthmark on her shoulder that I had. Under it, bold black letters. "Missing, Amelia Ross. Last seen 23 years ago." I felt the air leave my lungs. Mira stepped back, her mask slipping for just a second, and I saw something raw flash across her face. Not guilt, not shock, something darker, like she'd been waiting for this moment all along. I don't remember if I screamed. I remember my heartbeat though. It was everywhere, in my ears, in my throat, pulsing under my skin. The world around me blurred, as if someone had dropped me into a dream I couldn't wake from. The photo lay on my hospital blanket, face up. A baby with wide brown eyes and a tiny scar near the chin. The same one I had. The same mark Mira always told me was from when I fell as a toddler. I stared at it until the lines started to blur. The detective's voice broke through the silence. "We confirmed the match twice. Your DNA corresponds with the missing child report for Amelia Ross, who was abducted from Greenfield Park 23 years ago." Greenfield Park! That was nearly 200 miles from where I'd grown up. I turned to my father. He looked hollow, like someone had drained all the air from his lungs. His trembling hands reached toward me, but stopped halfway, as if afraid to touch me. "Lena, sweetheart, this can't be right," he whispered. "There must be a mistake." Mira said nothing. She just stood near the window, her back turned, one hand gripping the edge of the curtain so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. The detective opened the folder again, flipping through pages. Timelines, forensic reports, faded newspaper clippings. Amelia Ross was taken from her stroller during a family picnic. No ransom note, no suspects. The investigation went cold after 2 years. He paused, watching me carefully. But there was one interesting thing. A woman working as a nanny for the Ross family disappeared the same week. My gaze darted toward Mira. She didn't move. Didn't even breathe. Her name, he continued, was Mirabelle Dorsey. The sound of her full name, Mirabelle, made my stomach twist. Mira finally turned around, her expression eerily calm. "That's absurd," she said, voice smooth. "I've never even heard of the Ross family. Detective, this is cruel and completely unprofessional." But the detective wasn't rattled. "We'll need you both to come in for questioning once Miss Harris is released. Her name," Mira snapped, "is Lena." Something about the way she said it made the room colder. The detective closed the folder, gave me a sympathetic nod, and left, leaving behind an echo of unanswered questions that filled every inch of the room. When the door shut, my father slowly sat down beside me. His eyes glistened, confusion and guilt fighting for space in his expression. "Sweetheart," he whispered, I don't understand. You were born at St. Matthew's. We have records, certificates." Mira cut him off sharply. "Richard, stop. This is a bureaucratic mistake, that's all. They mix up DNA tests all the time." He turned to her, voice cracking. "Then why does she have the same birthmark? Why does the test say she isn't ours?" Mira's lips quivered for just a moment. Then she gathered herself, smoothing her blouse, and said coldly, "Because you let them meddle in things they shouldn't. All of this, is ridiculous." Her calmness terrified me more than her anger ever did. I looked at her and suddenly saw every moment of my childhood differently. Every strict rule, every punishment that seemed too harsh, every secret phone call she ended the second I entered the room. She'd always said she was protecting me. But from what? Or from who? That night, after my father left to meet with the hospital staff, Mira stayed behind. I hung up and sat on the porch for hours, staring into the dark, wondering what Mira was doing now. Was she hiding? Watching me? Regretting anything at all? I didn't think so. Mira didn't regret. She erased. But for the first time, I realized something important. The crash wasn't an accident. She hadn't just left me to die. She wanted me gone before anyone discovered who I really was. And if that was true, then Mira wasn't just my captor. She was a murderer who almost finished her story. That night, I whispered into the dark, "You took 23 years of my life, Mira, but I'm gonna take back every single day you stole." And as I said it, something inside me shifted. A quiet burning promise. Not for revenge. Not yet. But for truth. Because before I could destroy her, I needed to understand her. When I woke up in the hospital again, the world felt quieter. Almost empty. The ceiling lights hummed. A sound I'd never noticed before. My throat ached from the breathing tube, and my arms were covered in IV marks. The nurse said softly, "You've been asleep for 3 days, sweetheart." 3 days. 3 days since my stepmother left me here to die. My father wasn't there when I first woke up. I asked for him repeatedly, but no one would answer clearly. It wasn't until the next morning that a man in a police uniform entered, followed by my father, his eyes red, hollow, and swollen. He sat beside my bed without a word. I could see the guilt on his face, the kind that comes when a person realizes they've been blind for too long. "Dad," I whispered, my voice rasping. "Did she really leave me?" He clenched his jaw, trying to speak, but no words came out. The officer stepped forward and said, "We're investigating that, but there's something else you need to know." Something else? My heartbeat picked up again. My palms turned cold. The officer continued, "During the hospital's intake, your blood test revealed a mismatch in your medical history and parentage records. So, as a standard procedure, we checked the National Missing Persons database." My father's head snapped toward him, confused. "What does that mean?" The officer took a breath. "Sir, the DNA results show that your daughter isn't biologically related to you or your late first wife." The room fell silent. I stared at my father. He stared at me. The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What are you saying?" he asked, his voice trembling. The officer looked at me sympathetically. "It means she was likely kidnapped around 23 years ago. Her real family has been looking for her ever since." I thought I misheard him. Kidnapped? No, that wasn't possible. I grew up here. I was his daughter. The air in the room thickened. I saw my father's lips tremble, confusion and disbelief battling across his face. "There must be a mistake," he whispered. "That can't be true. I held her in my arms when she was a baby." But then his voice broke. He looked down, remembering something. He said slowly, "It was after the accident, after my wife died. She, my stepwife, Julia, brought the baby from the orphanage. She said it was an adoption arranged through her friend at the clinic. I trusted her. My blood ran cold, so that's how it happened. I wasn't his daughter by birth. I was the child my stepmother brought home after my mother died, and now, that same woman had left me in the ICU to die, trying to erase her mistake before it caught up to her." I closed my eyes, 1,000 thoughts flashing through my mind. Who was I really? Who were my real parents? And why did she choose me to live this lie? The officer said softly, "We've already contacted the family from the missing persons report. They've been waiting for this moment for 23 years. I couldn't breathe. My entire identity, my name, my childhood, every memory, suddenly felt borrowed." My father reached for my hand, tears streaming down his face. "You are still my daughter, no matter what," but I couldn't look at him. Not yet. The betrayal ran too deep, and the truth was still sinking in. Because now, I wasn't just the girl my stepmother left to die. I was the kidnapped child, a secret that could destroy everything. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over. If she had gone so far as to steal me from another family, then she had far darker secrets left to uncover. The day after I learned the truth, everything around me changed. The nurses whispered when they walked past my room. My father barely spoke, and when he did, his voice was a fragile whisper, filled with guilt and disbelief. But the police, they were everywhere. They questioned the doctors, collected records, and searched through old documents. My stepmother, Julia, had vanished completely. That afternoon, Detective Harris returned. He had the same calm eyes as before, but his tone was different, heavier. He pulled a chair close to my bed. "Leah," he began softly, "we've identified your biological parents." The words sent a strange shock through my chest. My biological parents. It felt surreal even hearing it. He placed 2 photographs on my lap, a man and a woman. Older now, but their eyes. They felt familiar. My eyes. "They've been searching for you since the day you disappeared from the hospital 23 years ago." He continued, "You were only a few months old. Your real mother never gave up. She filed missing persons reports every year." My hands trembled as I picked up the photos. My throat tightened. "Where are they now?" I asked. "They live in another city, Maple Ridge. We've contacted them. They're on their way here." My breath caught. I wasn't ready for this. How could I be? I'd spent my entire life thinking I belonged to someone else. When the detective left, my father, or the man I thought was my father, stood near the window. His back was turned, shoulders tense. "Dad," I said quietly. He didn't turn right away. Then with a deep exhale, he faced me. "I don't know how to ask for your forgiveness," he said. "I failed you. I failed to protect you. I trusted a woman who brought a stolen baby into our home." His voice broke. "I didn't know, Leah. I swear I didn't." I saw the pain in his eyes. Raw, human pain. He had loved me as his own for 23 years. That love was real. "I know," I whispered. "You didn't steal me. She did." And at that moment, for the first time since the truth came out, I saw how destroyed he was too. Julia hadn't just lied to me. She'd built an entire life on deceit, using both of us as pawns. A few hours later, 2 police officers entered my room again. "Miss," one said, "we have some updates regarding Julia." I straightened, heart pounding. "Did you find her?" They exchanged glances. "Not yet, but we found her storage unit. Inside, we discovered several fake documents, passports, adoption papers, and photos of you as a baby." My stomach twisted. Photos of me? Yes. One of them was taken in a hospital nursery. Not from this city. We believe she might have worked as a nurse at that time, under a different name. It all clicked in my head, like shards of glass falling into place. She'd stolen me herself. Every time she used to scold me for being ungrateful, or when she'd say, "You don't know how lucky you are to be in this family." She wasn't talking like a stepmother. She was talking like a thief, trying to justify her crime. And now she was gone, running. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was spinning about who I really was, about the family who was coming for me, and about the woman who'd built my entire life on a lie. Just before dawn, a nurse came in quietly. "Sweetheart," she said, "there are 2 people in the waiting area. They say they're your parents." My heart stopped. I sat up, trembling. My father, sitting beside me, looked down at his hands. I could tell he didn't know what to say or do. I whispered, "Let them in." The door opened slowly, and there they were, my real parents. My mother's face was wet with tears. Before she even reached me, she rushed to my bedside, grabbed my hand, and just whispered, my baby girl." Her voice cracked, and I felt her fingers tremble. Something deep inside me broke and healed, all at once. My father stood behind her, quiet but shaking. "We never stopped hoping," he said softly. For the first time, I didn't know where I belonged. Between the father who raised me and the parents who lost me, I was torn between 2 worlds, both filled with love and pain. But even as they embraced me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was still waiting. Because somewhere out there, Julia was still free. And she knew secrets neither of these families had uncovered yet. And somehow, I knew she wasn't done with me. Not yet. The next few days blurred into something unreal. Like I was living 2 lives at once. My biological parents stayed close to my hospital bed, holding on to me like they were afraid I'd disappear again. My mother's eyes followed every breath I took. She would stroke my hair and whisper, "I can't believe you're here, after 23 years." But my other father, the man who raised me, kept his distance. He would come by quietly in the evenings, bringing me food I couldn't eat, sitting in silence by the window, guilt shadowing his face, and I didn't know how to exist between them. The police told us Julia still hadn't been found. They suspected she'd left the city, maybe even changed her name again. But the thought of her running free, after everything, made me sick. On the 3rd night after my reunion, I was alone in my hospital room when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated, then picked it up. "Hello," a pause, then a whisper I recognized immediately. "Leah." My heart froze. "Julia." My voice shook. "How did you get this number?" She laughed quietly. "You think I don't know everything about you, my dear. I've been the one taking care of you all your life." My throat went dry. "Taking care of me? You kidnapped me. You left me to die." Her tone shifted. Sharp, defensive. "You don't understand. You never did." "I saved you, Leah. You were supposed to die that night, 23 years ago. Your mother—" "Stop," I snapped. "Don't you dare talk about her." But she kept going, voice trembling with anger. "Your real mother abandoned you in that hospital. I was the nurse on duty. They were going to switch off your incubator. You were sick. They said you wouldn't make it. I couldn't let that happen. I took you. I gave you a home, a father, a life. Everything she couldn't." I sat there shaking, my mind spinning. Could that be true? No. The detective said my parents had been looking for me every day for 23 years. You're lying, I said coldly. You stole me to fill your own emptiness. You used me. There was a pause on the line. Then softly she said, You'll see the truth soon enough. They're not who you think they are. And before I could respond, she hung up. I sat in silence, the room spinning around me. A nurse rushed in when she saw me trembling, but I waved her off because deep inside, something had shifted. If Julia was telling the truth, even a fraction of it, then everything I believed about my past was incomplete. The next morning, I told Detective Harris about the call. He immediately had my phone confiscated for tracing. His face was grave. She's dangerous, Leah. Don't engage with her again. We'll find her. But I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. They're not who you think they are. Later that day, my biological parents brought an old photo album. My mother's hands trembled as she turned the pages. Baby pictures, birthdays, empty spaces where photos should have been. And then I noticed something strange. A picture of a hospital, but not the one from the official records. This isn't where I was born, I said quietly. She frowned. It is, honey. St. Gabriel's Hospital. That's where you disappeared. My heart dropped. St. Gabriel's. The name Julia once mentioned when I was 10, telling me stories about a small hospital in the old town where angels saved babies. That wasn't coincidence. Julia had worked there, and if she wasn't lying, maybe she did take me during some kind of medical chaos. That night, when everyone was asleep, I pulled up the hospital archives online, and there it was. A news clipping from 23 years ago. Mysterious infant disappearance after power outage at St. Gabriel's. The article said the hospital's backup generators had failed for several minutes in the neonatal unit. 2 babies had been transferred afterward, but only one family ever came forward to claim theirs. 2 babies. A chill ran down my spine. What if I wasn't the only one taken that night? What if Julia wasn't lying entirely? What if there was another child, and the truth about that night had been buried deep? The thought consumed me, because if there was another missing child from that night, then Julia's motive wasn't just emotional. It was deliberate, targeted, and I had a feeling she wasn't done rewriting the past. I couldn't sleep that night. The hospital's hallway lights flickered faintly, painting shadows across the white walls. Each sound, a cart rolling, a monitor beeping, echoed like whispers of secrets long buried. The article about St. Gabriel's wouldn't leave my mind. 2 missing infants. 1 family claimed theirs, and 1 child was never found. That one was me, or so I thought, but Julia's voice haunted me. You'll see the truth soon enough. They're not who you think they are. The next morning, Detective Harris returned with updates. He told me Julia's call had been traced to a small motel outside the city, but when officers arrived, she was gone. The motel room, however, told a story. He placed a sealed evidence envelope on the table. Inside were photographs. Old, faded ones. One caught my eye immediately. It was me, as a baby, lying in a hospital crib. But beside me, in the same crib, was another infant, a twin. My breath caught. What is this? Detective Harris frowned. We don't know yet. The metadata on the back of the photo matches the date of your disappearance. The night of the power outage. I stared at the 2 babies. We had identical birth bracelets, same date, same hospital. My pulse quickened. So you're saying there were 2 of us? He nodded grimly. It's possible you weren't the only child taken that night. My mother gasped when she saw the photo. That can't be right. We only had 1 daughter. Just you, Leah. But the silence in her eyes told me even she was starting to question everything. Detective Harris said quietly, We're reopening the St. Gabriel's case. There were inconsistencies in the hospital's records. It looks like some files were destroyed. Deliberately, my mind spun. Destroyed files. A missing twin. Julia's strange justification that she saved me. None of it made sense, unless Julia hadn't been acting alone. Later that evening, I found my father, the man who raised me, sitting in the hospital courtyard, staring at nothing. He looked broken, smaller somehow. I saw the photo. I said softly. Did you know? He shook his head slowly. No, but Julia once mentioned something strange. A baby that didn't survive. She said it haunted her. I thought she meant her own miscarriage before she married me. But maybe, he stopped, realizing what that might mean. She might have taken both babies that night, I whispered. And something happened to one of them. The thought made my stomach twist. When I returned to my room, a small envelope was sitting on my pillow. No one saw who left it. Inside was a single Polaroid. Another photo of the same crib, but this time only one baby remained, and scrawled across the back in Julia's handwriting were 6 chilling words. You weren't the one she lost. My fingers went numb. What did she mean? Who was she? My real mother. Detective Harris rushed back when I showed him the photo. He was visibly shaken. She's playing a psychological game, Leah. Don't fall for it. But deep down, I knew Julia wasn't just playing games. She was revealing something, piece by piece, like she wanted me to find the truth. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Detective Harris from the hospital phone. I need to go to St. Gabriel's, I said. I need to see it for myself. He hesitated. It's been shut down for years. There's nothing left there. Then it's the perfect place to hide something, I said. The next day, under police supervision, we drove out to the ruins of St. Gabriel's Hospital. The building was half collapsed, with vines crawling up the cracked white walls. Inside, it smelled like dust and ghosts. As we searched, I noticed a loose floor tile near the old nursery ward. Something about it didn't feel right. I pried it open with a piece of metal, and inside was a small tin box. Rusted but intact. Inside were documents, birth certificates, patient lists, and a faded ID badge, Julia's. But one file stopped my heart. Baby A, female, status, missing. Baby B, female, status, deceased. My hand shook as I read the last line on the report. Twin birth, parents, Anna and Michael L. That was my biological parents' full name. So Julia hadn't stolen just one baby. She'd taken twins, and she'd lied about one of them dying. But what if the other baby, my twin, was still alive? The thought hit me like lightning. Julia's note, "You weren't the one she lost," suddenly made sense. She wasn't talking about me. She was talking about my sister. The sister no one knew existed. The sister Julia might have kept, and somewhere out there, she might still be alive, living under a different name, in a different world, and Julia, she was still hiding her. The ride back from the ruins of St. Gabriel's felt endless. The truth pressed down on me like a weight I couldn't breathe under, a twin. Somewhere out there, another girl had lived a life that was meant to be intertwined with mine. But instead, Julia had separated us. My biological mother had lost 2 daughters that night, and she didn't even know it. When we reached the city, Detective Harris looked grim. Leah, this isn't something you can handle alone. If Julia took both babies, we're dealing with a case that involves forged records, abduction, and possibly human trafficking. Human trafficking. The words made my skin crawl, but I shook my head. No, Julia's motive was personal. She didn't sell me. She raised me. There's something deeper. He hesitated, then nodded. You might be right. We traced Julia's bank records. She's been withdrawing cash in small amounts from ATMs across the eastern counties. She's on the move, but she's not running far. It's almost like She's waiting for something. Waiting for me, I thought. That night, I sat by the window of my hospital room, staring at the city lights. My biological parents had gone home to rest for the night. My other father sat quietly beside me, guilt written all over him. I used to think Julia was lonely, he said finally. After your mother died, she talked about wanting a child so badly. I never realized how far she'd go to get one. But now, I'm starting to think she didn't just want a child. She wanted control. His voice cracked on the last word. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived at the nurse's desk, addressed to me. No return address. Inside was a single note, written in that same looping, elegant handwriting. You're close now. Follow where it began. The house by the river. My pulse quickened. The house by the river. I remembered that place. Julia used to take me there when I was a child. It was a small cottage outside town, hidden behind rows of willows. She said it was her peaceful escape. But suddenly, it didn't seem peaceful anymore. I showed the note to Detective Harris. He ordered 2 officers to accompany me. We drove there that afternoon. The cottage looked untouched. Shutters closed, weeds overgrown. When we stepped inside, the air smelled like old perfume and dust. Everything was frozen in time. The teacups on the counter, the clock on the wall, stopped at 3:12, and then I saw it. A photo frame on the fireplace mantel. It was Julia, holding a teenage girl. The girl looked eerily familiar. Same eyes, same smile. My voice trembled. That's her. That's my sister. Detective Harris's face went pale. We'll need to identify her. If Julia raised another child under a false name, we can trace it. We searched the house for documents. In a locked drawer, we found an ID card for a Clara Weston. Age 22, same birth date as mine. My heart stopped. Julia hadn't just kidnapped 2 babies. She had raised one in the shadows, under a new name. A sound came from upstairs. Soft footsteps. The officers froze. One of them whispered, "Someone's here." I followed them cautiously up the narrow staircase. The door at the end of the hall creaked open. And there she was, the girl from the photo. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. Her voice shook. "Who are you?" I could barely speak. I think I'm your sister." Her eyes widened. She stumbled back, clutching the wall. "No, that's not possible. My mom, Julia," I interrupted. She froze. "How do you know her name?" Tears welled in my eyes. "Because she's not your mom. She kidnapped both of us. You're Clara, my twin." She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, she said my sister died. She said you were the one who didn't survive." I stepped closer, voice trembling. "She lied to both of us." Just then, a floorboard creaked downstairs. The front door slamming open. Julia's voice echoed through the house. "Clara! Leah, stop!" We both turned, frozen in shock. She appeared at the bottom of the stairs, disheveled, frantic, eyes wild. "You don't understand what I did for you," I shouted. "You stole us." Tears streamed down her face. "No, I saved you. They were going to separate you, sell you to different families. I couldn't let that happen." Detective Harris stepped forward, gun drawn. "Julia, drop the act. It's over." But she ignored him, looking only at me, her voice breaking. "I loved you both like my own. You don't know what those people were capable of. I took you to protect you." Her words hung in the air. Half madness, half truth. I could see it now. The obsession, the loneliness, the twisted form of love. "Julia," I said softly, "whatever you thought you were doing, you destroyed everything." Her shoulders sagged. For the first time, she looked small, defeated. "I only wanted a family," she whispered. Then, before anyone could stop her, she turned, ran out the back door, and disappeared into the woods. By the time police dogs searched the area, she was gone. Again, but this time I wasn't alone. Because now, I had Clara, my twin, standing beside me. And together, we were determined to uncover the real truth behind Julia's obsession and the powerful people she claimed she was protecting us from. The days after finding Clara were surreal. For the first time in 23 years, I felt like a part of me was complete, but the shadow of Julia still loomed over us, and the detective warned us that she was clever, unpredictable, and dangerous. Clara and I spent hours talking, piecing together fragments of our stolen childhood. We laughed, we cried, and we whispered secrets neither of us had ever shared. But underneath it all, a burning question lingered. Why us? Detective Harris called a meeting at the station with our biological parents and a forensic team. Julia's history is more extensive than we realized, he said. She didn't just target your family randomly. The Ross family, your real parents, had connections. Julia knew them. She knew about the twins. I froze. Connections. What kind of connections? He leaned forward. Evelyn, Michael, you were both involved in charitable medical research, hospitals, neonatal programs. Julia worked as a nurse in one of those hospitals. She saw the twins at birth. My heart pounded. So she planned this from the start. Harris nodded. Yes, she removed one child, you, Leah, and kept the other, Clara, under her care. She fabricated stories to make each of you believe you were the only survivor. She lied about your deaths and your family history. And she did it in a way that she could maintain control. Clara's hands trembled. All those years, she told me I was alone, that my sister died. She lied. About everything. My mother's voice broke. She destroyed our family. 23 years of hope. Stolen by a woman who called herself a caretaker. But the detective wasn't finished. There's more. We believe Julia wasn't acting purely out of obsession. There were financial motives involved. Hospital records show she had connections to insurance fraud, falsifying deaths, claiming patients died to collect money. The Ross twins were profitable targets. I could hardly breathe. My life, our lives, had been a business for her. A twisted, cruel game. Clara's eyes filled with tears. She raised me to obey her. I thought I was safe, but I was a prisoner, a replacement child, a shadow. I felt rage building inside me. No more shadows. Not anymore. The detective handed us another folder. We've traced some of her movements. Julia has been using multiple identities over the years. Every time a family comes forward about a missing child, she disappears before anyone can catch her. Clara and I exchanged a look. A silent vow. That night, we returned to the house she had abandoned. Every corner, every creaky floorboard reminded me of her manipulation. But this time, we weren't afraid. We searched for anything that could lead us to her. Diaries, receipts, letters, anything. And behind a loose panel in the attic, we found it. A journal filled with meticulous notes, dates, and coded messages. Julia had documented every moment, every lie, every manipulation, every move she'd made to control us. One entry caught my eye. Leah must never know. Clara must be mine. The Ross legacy is mine to protect. If anyone interferes, both will disappear. I will rewrite their lives. I felt my blood boil. She had called her crime protection. Protection. For whom? For herself. I looked at Clara. She wants us scared. But we're not. We have each other now. Clara nodded, her hands gripping mine. We can stop her. We have to. Detective Harris warned us not to confront Julia directly yet. She's unpredictable. But with this journal, we can trace her patterns. Predict her next move. That's when it hit me. Julia's obsession wasn't just with us. It was with control, power, and the twisted illusion that she could rewrite fate. And if we were going to take our lives back, we had to dismantle everything she had built. For the first time, Claire and I felt something we'd never known in our stolen lives. Agency. The fear that had been instilled in us by Julia for 23 years was gone, and the hunt was just beginning. The night was dark when Clara and I, flanked by Detective Harris and a small team, approached the abandoned warehouse Julia had been traced to. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes your heart pound and your palms sweat. "This is it," Harris whispered. "She's inside. We don't know how many traps she's set up. Be careful." Clara and I exchanged a glance, twin faces reflecting the same determination. We weren't afraid anymore. We entered quietly. The warehouse smelled of dust and decay. Old crates were stacked high, cobwebs hanging like silent witnesses. And then we saw her, Julia. She stood at the far end of the room, surrounded by monitors showing grainy security footage. Images of us, of our parents, of every move she had tracked for the past 23 years. Her hair was wild, eyes bright with mania. "You're here," she said, her voice both soft and dangerous. "I knew you would come. You can't escape your fate. You were never meant to leave me." I stepped forward. "You lied to us. You destroyed our lives. You hurt our parents. You took everything from us, Julia." She laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "I saved you. Don't you see? You think you were stolen. But I gave you a life, a purpose. You should thank me." Clara's voice cut through the tension. "You destroyed me. You lied about my sister. You told me my life was mine to live, but it was yours to control." Detective Harris moved closer, keeping a careful distance. "Julia, it's over. Surrender, or you'll face charges for kidnapping, fraud, and endangering both children." Her laughter faded. She stared at the journal we had recovered, then back at us. "You don't understand. I had to protect you from them. From the people who wanted the twins gone." I shook my head. "You made up your own rules. You weren't protecting anyone. You were hiding behind lies." For a moment she froze. Then she turned, running toward a side exit. Officers blocked the way, but she had one last trick. A hidden tunnel beneath a floor grate. She vanished into it before anyone could stop her. We followed carefully, the tunnel leading to a small, dimly lit room. And there she was, finally cornered. No monitors, no traps, just Julia, trembling, her eyes wide. She was no longer threatening, only broken. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I only wanted a family. I was all they had. I couldn't let anyone hurt you." Clara stepped forward, her hands steady. "You weren't our family. You were our captor. And now it's over." Detective Harris cuffed her, reading her rights. Julia didn't resist. Her eyes followed us the entire time, haunted, like she couldn't grasp that control was gone forever. Later, we returned to our biological parents' home. For the first time in decades, our family, both the parents who lost us and the father who raised one of us, sat together. The twins, finally united, felt the weight of stolen years, but also the promise of what could be rebuilt. I looked at Clara, her hand in mine. "We're together now," I said softly. She nodded. "And we can finally be ourselves." Our parents held us both, tears flowing freely. There were apologies, forgiveness, and whispered promises. Years of loss, fear, and deceit were slowly untangled. And as I looked out the window that night, I realized something crucial. Julia had tried to control our past, but she couldn't control our future. We were free, and nothing, not lies, not kidnappings, not 23 years of stolen life, could take that away from us, because we were sisters, and together, we could reclaim every single day that was ever stolen. All right, everyone, that's all I have for today. If you found this entertaining, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. If you want to watch more, please check out our playlist. Finally, a huge thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy.